Welcome to lecture 49, which is on accuracy assessment of classification. So in this lecture you will learn that once you have done the classification of the satellite image into various thematic maps, how to determine the accuracy of the thematic map, because this is very important. Unless and until we are not sure about the accuracy, the maps are not usable. So, about the classified image, you know that you are processing the images and using supervised or unsupervised or any other classification technique and using multiple bands and deriving some kind of a thematic map, a classified map. Now, this output could be a land use and land cover map, or it could be a vegetation map, or it could be a thematic map which is showing various categories at the group of the pixels. So, we have to ensure now, if there are 10 classes, 10 categories present in the map, you have to ensure the overall accuracy of the map and also the accuracy of each and every class. Because I may be interested only in the urban area, the information related to the urban pixels, but urban pixels are not classified very accurately, while others have been identified accurately. So, my results may not be perfect in that case because of the poor accuracy of the urban area. So, it is important that we identify the accuracy of individual class also. So, this classification which has been made by the algorithm, we select any modern algorithm or we select the conventional kind of algorithm, we never get perfect results. So, we cannot say that my map or my thematic information is 100% accurate. So, each of the technique will produce the map which might have certain error. So, we have to identify how much is that error in terms of its magnitude. So, maps which we are using for some application purpose, for measurement purpose, or in GIS based analysis, they should be very accurate maps. So, otherwise from a classification algorithm you will get some kind of a output. So, always you will get some output, but whether that output is usable or not, it will be determined by the accuracy of the map. So, accuracy determination, accuracy assessment is very important, and we should never use the map straight away which we are deriving from any classifier into our application. So, our next job is then identifying the accuracy part of it. Now, this is a for example satellite image. A raw satellite image is there with 3 band data, and you can see the false color composite. So, in the middle there is a river, the dark shade is indicating the river, while the orange and the pink shade or the reddish kind of a shade is indicating the dense vegetation cover in the area. And apart from that, there are linear feature, there is a pattern which is indicating that this is all the habitated area. So, this has to be classified. This is a digital image. When we are classifying this particular image, we are getting something like this output. So, this is the land use classification map of the area, and different colors have been assigned by the users. So, user is going to use those standard colors which are normally used in the map. Those standard colors are given here, and each of the class now is shown by a different color scheme. Now, this particular land use classification, we can determine the area of each and every class, because there is a forest area, there is a water pixels, there are urban areas into that. But at the same time, it is important to know the accuracy of this map. So, if the accuracy is not known, then probably there is a doubt that classification is perfect or not, whether the some pixels have been misclassified or not. So, this is a likelihood of that. So, we are actually using this kind of a map which we are generating from the digital images using some kind of a algorithm in order to determine the accuracy. So, the classified image, in fact we should determine the accuracy of our visual interpretation also. When we prepare a map by visual interpretation technique, then the accuracy assessment is important in that case also. So, this classified image may contain some error. It could be error in my training data sets, labeling the clusters after the unsupervised classification method, or there are some unidentified class. There are some classes which are not properly identified into their true classes, or the correlation between the bands. As you know that some of the in the multispectral data the bands are highly correlated, or we have not selected the correct data set, we have not selected the correct algorithm for classification. So, there could be several reasons for which the error could be present in the data sets. So, there is a common question now in the mind of the user that how accurate is the classification. So, whether I should get 100% classification and then I should proceed with the results, or whether I can accept some level of inaccuracy also. So, in the literature it says that if the maps are 90% or higher accurate, one can actually go for them, straight away use them for measurement, for application purpose. So, this is accuracy is the primary criteria of using these maps which have been generated by various algorithms using remotely sensed data. It will assess that how well the classification algorithm has performed, has worked in order to produce the accurate results, and it also provide the understanding of the usefulness of the map. So, if the maps have poor accuracy, then probably the usefulness is less. If the map have higher accuracy, the usefulness is definitely higher for such kind of maps. So, we have to determine the accuracy of the classified map. If we do not know the accuracy, a classified map may be just like a pretty picture, it is just like a drawing. So, we have to identify, for example, this is a thematic map here, and we have to identify percentage of pixels which are correctly classified when we are comparing with the ground reality. So, we should have some kind of a ground data, whether this is the output from supervised classification method or unsupervised classification method. Here the role of ground data or the reference data is very, very important, and this percentage of pixels which have been correctly identified, this is the measure of the overall accuracy of the map. And also we can determine the accuracy of the individual classes. As you can see that there are more than 10 classes present in this thematic map. So, we have to understand now how we are going to determine the accuracy. This is on the first left hand side we have the image, and from the image we are extracting the buildings, for example, and we have created a map of the buildings, and then we have the third one is the reference data. So, it could be a data which is very, very accurately taken out either from the ground or some other sources, and then we are trying to compare B and C together. So, B is my output from the satellite image classification, and C has come from the ground truth data. So, when we are comparing the two together, you can see superimposing the two together, we can get something like that. The red color is indicating the false area, that the classification is not correct, but the green area is showing the classification is correct, because both the results are matching together when I superimpose them, and there is some missed area by the classification. So, the pixels have not been classified very, very accurately here. So, this is the misclassification which has been done, this is the missed area which is done by the algorithm. So, This is the kind of analysis we have to carry out, and we have to carry out not just the visual analysis, we have to carry out the analysis numerically in terms of the percentage pixels. So, there are various terms which we are using when we do the accuracy assessment of the data. We are calculating the omission error, we are calculating the commission error, we are calculating the overall accuracy of the map. Then there are two more terms, the producer's accuracy and the user's accuracy. And also there is another measure, another very important coefficient which determines the accuracy of the classification, which is the Kappa coefficients. So, these are the terminology which we are now using when we carry out the accuracy assessment of the data. So, the classification of accuracy is done in terms of the error matrix. Very popular method is the error matrix. This is also called the confusion matrix, and we create a matrix from our reference data and from the classified image. So, this is simply a cross tabulation of the mapped classes against the real data, ground data or the reference data. So, we create a matrix, and with the help of that matrix we can carry out the numerical calculations in order to determine what percentage of the pixels have been correctly identified. But before we are doing that accuracy assessment, the ground reference data collection is very important. As you can see in the image here, those dots are the points which have been used to collect the ground reference data, ground truth data. So, we can only determine the correct accuracy assessment if our ground data is correct. If the ground data has some error, then that will be reflected in our accuracy assessment procedure also. So, very carefully one has to collect the reference data or the ground data, and also then compare it with the classified map. So, this is the error matrix. Now, in the error matrix you can see that the classification results basically are shown in the rows, and the ground truth data is those classes A, B, C, D, E. These are the ground truth classes, they are known to us, and the results are shown in the vertical, and the classification results from the image A, B, C, D, E, they are shown in the row. So, it indicates that how many pixels are classified into the correct class. For the class A, for example, the when we are checking with the ground truth data, 100 pixels are there, and all the 100 pixels have been allocated to class A. There are no pixels which have been allocated to the other class. So, here the classification is very accurate. But when we are talking about the B result in the classification part, then we can see here that there is no pixel which has gone to class A, there are 76 pixels which have gone to class B. Then in the C also there is no pixel which have been classified, but there is a misclassification. There are 3 pixels here, now you can see 3 pixels which have gone to class D. They were actually belonging to other class, and there is a 0 pixel which is class 2E. So, likewise you can complete the entire matrix. You have the total number of pixels in the classification maps, you have the total number of pixels in the ground truth data for the reference data. So, you can create this kind of a matrix, and the last column says the total. So, you just carry out the total number of pixels. So, total 79 pixels are there in the classification reference data, total 112 pixels are there in the classification result data. So, you can see the number of pixels in the classification result, and from the ground also you can see that how many pixels are there for each class. So, if I know that matrix, if I know this kind of a data with me, now the rest thing is calculation, which is very simple. So, when we are having the test areas through which we are comparing our classified map, they should be a representative area, they should have uniform or homogeneous land use and land cover classes identified, and these test areas we are using for post classification accuracy assessment. So, if you remember, we are collecting training samples for supervised classification. So, we are keeping some of the training samples to check the accuracy of the classification. So, these are those test area. Now, there are some possible sources of the reference data, from where the reference data would come. It could be the aerial photo interpretation or some existing maps, maybe ground truth collection with the GPS data, or maybe the GIS layer. So, these are some of the possible ways, from where this the ground truth data will come, and this becomes the reference data for comparing the data. Now, when we are carrying out the ground sampling, when we are collecting the data, then determining the position and number of samples, they are also very, very important to us. So, the locations of the ground truth data and how many samples are there. So, you have to ensure that you are covering the whole of the terrain and whole of the landscape when you are collecting the data. Whole means the 15 to 20% of the terrain you are collecting. Then there are techniques, sampling techniques are there, like random technique or the stratified random technique or systematic technique. So, you are going to select a particular technique, and then using that technique you are going to collect the data. The more the reference data you collect, the better it is, but you cannot collect the reference data for all the 100% of the area. So, about 20% of the area you collect the reference data and use that data to carry out the accuracy assessment. So, you can estimate how many number of pixels are present actually on the ground, and how many in the same area, how many pixels have been classified on the satellite based map. So, literature is suggesting a different kind of a figure, right, from 20% to 50% of the area should be covered by ground truth. So, these are the sampling methods, how you should go and collect the samples for accuracy assessment, or maybe the supervised classification method where training data is required. So, this is a simple random sampling method. That means randomly you like to cover the whole area. So, there is no pattern, it is at random, wherever it is convenient it is selected. So, most of the time people are collecting the data, sampling data along the road, because it is very much convenient that they have access to those particular sites. Then the second method is the stratified random sampling method, that you define that these are the minimum number of observations which you have to take for a particular area, for a particular class, and then it is again random, but the number of samples are fixed. So, the sampling is done according to that. Then the third method is the systematic sampling method. This systematic sampling method is suggesting that you are using some kind of a grid based approach very systematically. It is making some kind of a pattern. So, at a regular interval you are selecting the samples here. So, they almost making a grid pattern kind of. Then systematically non alignment. So, systematically non aligned means that they are not making a pattern, but you are very systematic, that you are selecting in each grid, you are ensuring that some samples are collected from the each grid. Then cluster sampling is there. So, randomly placed centroids, and then you are collecting the data all around that centroid. So, these are the different methods. Each of the method has got its merit and demerit, but one has to select a particular method in order to collect the data. So, once you have collected the data, this is the example which shows that from the reference source, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 categories which are coming from the ground truth data. The same 4 category, the plot, the conifer, hardwood, water, this is from the classified map, and the last column here is indicating the total from the classified map, and here it shows the total from the reference sources. So, using this distribution of the figure, now we can determine the individual accuracy as well as we can determine the total overall accuracy. So, if you remember, I had actually mentioned these two terms, the error of omission and error of commission. So, error of omission is also known as the exclusion error, the error of commission is known as the inclusion error. So, there is a difference between the two. The error of omission, it represents the pixels that actually belong to that class, but failed to be classified into the actual classes. So, this is called the error of omission, but the error of commission is, it is representing the pixels that are belonging to another class, but are classified to a particular class. So, they are opposite in nature to each other. So, by knowing its definition and by knowing its calculation, we can calculate the error of omission and the error of commission from the error matrix. Overall accuracy is very important. We know that total number of pixels which have been correctly classified, the total number of pixels which have been incorrectly classified. So, dividing the total number of the correctly classified pixel by the total number of the reference pixels, we can get the overall accuracy. So, it will depend upon again the number of the training samples which we have selected and the quality of the training data sets which we have. But please remember that overall accuracy of a map could be very high, and individual accuracy, if we are talking of the individual class, and maybe that one or two class is very important to us, then we may not have that high accuracy of the individual class. So, it might not reflect the properly what is happening actually outside the training data. So, within the training data, this is very high accuracy it is determining, but there are other areas. You have collected the training sets for 20% of the area, there are 80% other areas also. What is happening to those areas? So, now you see this particular slide is showing you that how you are calculating the overall accuracy. So, if you take the diagonal pixels here, diagonal pixels are those pixels which are found at the ground also, and they are in the reference system also. So, these are the diagonal pixels. So, we are taking those diagonal pixels because they are correctly identified at both the places. So, 50 plus 13 plus 8, and total number of this is 100. So, divide by 100 and we have to calculate the percentage, so I am multiplying by 100. So, we are getting 71% accuracy. Off diagonals are those pixels which are misclassified. So, they are less in number, and diagonal elements are greater in numbers in any of the confusion matrix or the error matrix. So, with the help of this, we are calculating the overall accuracy, but with the help of the off diagonal elements, now we are calculating the other part of the accuracy. But there is a problem with the overall accuracy. The value is an average, and it does not reveal if the error was evenly distributed between the classes, or if some classes were really classified poorly. So, and some are classified in a very good manner, high accuracy. Some are identified with high accuracy and some are identified with the low accuracy. So, it will not give you that kind of a data. Therefore, we have to use user's accuracy and the producer accuracy. So, this user accuracy and producer accuracy will actually tells you that which particular class has performed very well and other classes have not performed well. So, user accuracy corresponds to the error of commission, which is called the inclusion error, and producer accuracy is the error of omission, the term which I have explained you earlier. So, it is called the exclusion error. So, let us calculate now these accuracy. User accuracy from the perspective of the user of the classified map, it is very important, because now I will know which particular class has high accuracy. So, it is calculated by the number of correctly identified pixels in a given map of a class divided by the number claimed to be in that map class. So, if we take these two figures from the contingency matrix, we can calculate the user matrix. So, example is shown here that 50 are the total correctly classified, but the total were 57. So, 50 divided by 57 multiplied by 100 is the 88%. So, if we are talking of the accuracy of the coniferous, a coniferous forest has been identified only with 88% accuracy, although the overall accuracy may be much higher of this map. Now, let us see the producer accuracy. So, from the perspective of the maker of the classification map, how accurate is the map, this is shown in this, and we are calculating the producer accuracy by the number of correctly identified pixels in the reference plot of a given class divided by total number actually present in that reference. So, that determines the producer accuracy. So, again the ratio of the two figure. So, if we go back to our table here, then the producer accuracy would be 50 divided by 67, total number of pixels are 67, 50 divided by 67 multiplied by 100. So, here we are getting 75% producer accuracy. So, you can see here the user accuracy and producer accuracy and the overall accuracy, they are all different figure and convey you the different meaning. So, once we carry out the accuracy assessment, just see the summary of this contingency table again. The user accuracy of the coniferous is 88%, but the producer accuracy is 75%. For hardwood it is 48% is poor, but it has increased here 57%. And for water pixel the user accuracy is 50%, whereas the producer accuracy is 80% and the overall is 71%. So, this gives us a true picture that how well a pixel has been classified with reference to the reference data. Now, the second method of accuracy assessment is the Kappa based method. So, Kappa is statistics and it is denoted by letter K here, and it reflects the difference between the actual agreement and the agreement that is expected by chance. Means Kappa 0.85 if we are getting, it means that there are 85% better agreement than by chance alone. And this Kappa is calculated, there is a mathematical relationship, the observed accuracy minus the chance agreement divided by 1 minus the chance agreement. So, if we are using the Kappa accuracy assessment factor, this is also found to be better than using the user's accuracy or producer accuracy or the overall accuracy assessment. So, once we know the relationship, we know observed accuracy which can be determined by the diagonal element in the error matrix. So, we take the help of the diagonal element, and then chance agreement would require the off diagonal elements. So, we take the off diagonal elements there and substitute in this relationship in order to determine the Kappa accuracy. So, see now this table again here. So, we are getting Kappa is 0.46 only here. So, Kappa accuracy is 46%, which is a quite low value here. Now, other uses of Kappa is we can compare the two error matrix, we can weight cells in each matrix according to the severity of the misclassification. So, if a particular class has been misclassified, then also we can give the weightage to the each cell, and this provide the error bounds on the accuracy limit. Now, each type of accuracy estimate, as you can see, will give us the different kind of a information content. So, if we are focusing only on one like overall accuracy or user accuracy or producer accuracy or Kappa coefficient, we may get erroneous sense of the accuracy also. So, when we are quantifying the total accuracy in this particular example was 71%, but user accuracy was only 48%. So that is not, the overall accuracy will be totally misleading if we use this particular figure. So let us summarize the accuracy assessment procedure. The accuracy assessment, it is a statistical kind of a method. Is this method is important to determine the accuracy of the classified map before we are carrying out some measurements on the map or using that statistics data for the application part. If suppose we determine the area of the forest cover. So, if the forest has not been misclassified, then the area is erroneous. We cannot use then in that application part. So, there are two methods which have been explained here, error matrix and Kappa coefficient matrix, but there are other methods too in the literature, and these two methods have been found to be quite useful in order to get some idea of the individual class accuracy. Individual class accuracy is very important, because sometimes we might be more interested in one class as compared to the other map while we are doing further use of these maps for a particular application. So, this is all about the assessment of the accuracy.